My name is Brian Banks. I've been with Lone Star Communications now for just over 15 years. Our main verticals are healthcare and education, the K-12, nurse call systems, and threat management systems for the K-12 vertical. Pretty much from a day-to-day, we just make it our passion and it's our mission is just to make communities safer.
Wonderful. And you have recently received a promotion. So we put everything out there with one job title, but tell me about your new job title.
Awesome. Well, actually, this kind of works within the passion of what my early goals were to become a coder, a programmer. My interest in my early days was to actually design video games. And through that college journey, I ended up joining the military for 8 years. And within the military, I was an encryption decryption analyst for them for 8 years. And after the military, I got out and started working for a Lone Star Communications a little while later, and been here ever since.
Awesome. And we go way back with Lone Star Communications, and we've been working with you folks for quite a while as far as implementing your security awareness training program. Now, I know I had mentioned in our prep call, I don't want this to just be a Defendify services plug. We are going to talk about your experience with Defendify, but I'm a big believer that it doesn't matter what vendor you're using, we can compete on functionality and price and all those other things. But the most important thing that I want our audience to take out of our session today is it doesn't matter what tool you're using. We just want you to start implementing a security awareness training program. So if you're using another tool, you can just substitute Defendify for that other company name or whatever solution you're using. If it's something you're managing in-house, bless you. But it's not just going to be a full Defendify pitch. So if you were worried about that when you came, don't worry. So take us through the beginning of your security awareness training program rollout. What did it look like before we partnered up?
Well, first, let me apologize. I wanted to give a little bit clarity on what I do now. I just signed the job description today. So actually what I am now is a technology integrations engineer and application development. So I literally design software and mobile apps, things for our organization and our customers. So that's where I'm at with the organization. When I first started with Lone Star Communications, cybersecurity wasn't even a thing. There was no policy. There was nothing. And our CEO brought me in after recalling what was on my resume and says, "Hey, you got a little bit of a background in security and in the cyber world, right?" And I says, "Yeah, a little bit from the military." And he said, "I'd like for you to take a look at our company and just see what we can do to protect ourselves." So we really didn't have anything, and I really didn't know what to do from a civilian standpoint. And so just scouring the internet and really looking at what can I do to protect our company, and also working within the healthcare vertical. Oh my God, that's when I learned just how much and how far behind we were with our cyber culture. So at the initial rollout, it was just a lot of YouTubing, a lot of reaching out to certain individuals, and going to just as many conferences as I could go to. So that was the initial start.
We can obviously tell how long ago that was if we were going to conferences, because we had, a 2-year hiatus in the middle there where we didn't do any conferences. And you had said to me at one point that in the beginning of your rollout program, you're just so buried with all of your day-to-day job responsibilities that you didn't see any possible inkling of daylight. And one of our first calls, I joked and said, once we get this all humming and rolling, what are you going to do with all your free time? And you kind of laughed at me.
Yeah. I had no idea what that even meant, because I really did not see. I thought it was really a nice gesture, but I'm like, man, there's no way I'm going to see daylight forever, anytime soon.
Right? This chick doesn't get it. You wouldn't be the first or the last to probably say that. Fortunately, I've been on the facilitating end of that. So I know you were doing a lot of things, kind of a manual in-house process. You had purchased another tool to help out, but a lot of the times I find that the security awareness training tools that are out there end up kind of being like my gym membership, where yes, I can say I have a gym membership, and maybe for a couple weeks when I, first hit January or so, I really try to go, but then everything kind of falls off. And even though I have the gym membership, I'm not necessarily using it. So what was it internally that led you to adding more security awareness training in-house?
Well, initially we did start out with another company that, and we were focused on just the training aspect of it, and still trying to do a lot of the vulnerability scans and fish testing in house. And it was even then it was still just a tremendous task. And at the time, everybody was pretty much new to fish testing, and it was just an unbelievable journey trying to get the end user participation as a part of that for various reasons. And it just going through that whole process is what literally led to me in one particular conference where I met Rob and I listened to him speak, and I immediately saw that he knew exactly. I'm coming from the AV industry as an integrator. He had an idea of exactly what we were going through, and that is why I actually started looking at Defendify.
And there was an incident internally that was narrowly avoided in the 11th hour.
Oh yes, we had an instance where it started out as a text message between our CEO and our CFO. And that text message between the two led to an email conversation. And it was for the transaction or the transfer of $400,000 to another bank account. And it literally, everything was captured at the very last step on the bank's side. And that literally terrified everyone at that particular point, because again, it was something that the bank caught at the very last step, and that was very disheartening.
Nothing like that to ruin a day and make everything up here drop directly through your feet. I know what that, as I call it, the oh-ish moment. I know exactly what that feels like. Anybody that is familiar with Defendify or has heard my story, I shared it on a podcast recently, but about almost wiring $2.1 million to a cyber attacker. And because of our little podunk main bank process, doing all these real estate wires, we just so happened to catch it with a combination of a wrong FedEx zip code and our main bank wire batch process, but there is nothing like that oh-ish feeling. So awesome. So a little bit of a security awareness training program, but not a ton. So we got you set up with some of the Defendify services, a lot of the user awareness training side of things. So let's talk about some of the things that you did internally to increase adoption. So we rolled out some phishing simulations that come out automatically for you, micro-learning videos for all of the employees. There's also a about 15-20 minute classroom awareness training video, some posters, threat alert notifications, policies, all those kinds of things that are in the platform that we rolled out. But just in a kind of a general sense, what did you do and what do you recommend for fostering that employee engagement in the cybersecurity awareness program?
Well, initially, what we started was actually we have a company newsletter that goes out every month, and in that newsletter, for any of the employees that actually had did any action or led to any or reported any incident that protected our network and our customers' network, we would give them a little shield badge and add them to our company newsletter as the defender of the month. And when we started, we sort of gamified it, and for those that actually started reporting more, we would give them a gift card or something to reward them for actually reporting those issues. That's how we initially started. But we later started doing what we call SWOT analysis: strength, weaknesses, opportunities, and strengths. And that is basically, that comes from employee feedback. And even then, the employees identified that cybersecurity was still and was our number one threat that would disrupt our company or put us out of business. And so what I later did is I actually started utilizing some of my development skills, and I created an app. And I really wanted Defendify to become a household name in our company, so that when they saw, the name, come across in any email or blog or anything, that they were familiar with what was going on, or that this was a safe zone. And so within that app, we gave them a portal to go in and do trainings. They could actually go in and read the Defendify blog, and also the threat alerts that came out. They found that just tremendously powerful. And once we rolled that app out, I mean, the feedback was over the top. I mean, everything just got just so much better in culture, so to speak. As far as our cybersecurity was going, it was just absolutely a no-brainer and a winner for us.
And I mean, not everybody is going to be able to create a company mobile app in order to have employees have a place to be able to go to ask questions, or that's not always within the purview.
Right. But it's just the actual within that analysis and just talking to everybody. That's really what gave me the idea, and I just used my skill set at that point. But I would really encourage talking to the employees, removing that fear that if I report something or if I click something, I'm going to get terminated, or there's going to be some reprimand for me clicking this. I mean, again, I'm the cybersecurity guy, and I almost, I clicked on our company president loves to send out cowboy tickets. And I am, a Cowboys guy, and it was during a good season. And so he sent out an email and says, hey, whoever responds first gets these amazing seats to the Cowboy game. The email wasn't even done, and I clicked it. And after I clicked it, I did get the tickets, but I was sitting there thinking to myself, like, wow, man, this literally could have been a really bad email that I clicked. So, it was just really explaining to all the employees that anybody, if you just take time to read those emails, and then what can I do, from Brian Banks' standpoint, what can I do to make this easier for you? So a lot of times I have them forwarding me emails, initially when they were not really that keen on spotting those fishy emails. And again, that being reinforced by the fish test training, it really changed our culture here.
I think it's extremely important to consider, as you're rolling out a security awareness program, how you're positioning these types of things. So, for example, with the beginning rollout, really explaining to employees why you're doing this, why this is so important. I mean, you kind of think of, if you're a parent, or obviously you probably had parents at some point, when they just tell you to do something and it's because I said so, for example, like IT professionals or business leaders, we don't want to be the department of because I said so, or the department of no. So really helping employees to understand why this is so important. Give them some benefits that extend outside of work as well. I love when companies share stories where an employee has gone through some training, they've started to connect benefits to their personal lives as well, and then they're reporting that they shared some of this knowledge, or they went home and played the awareness training videos for their family, and either their spouse or their school-age children or their elderly parents have taken something that they've learned from their work cybersecurity training, and it's benefited them, in their personal life, because I'm sure they're probably getting all kinds of text messages on their cell phone telling them that their, March AT&T bill has been paid. Click here for this bonus, or your Walmart receipt came in second in our drawing. Claim your earbuds, whatever it might be. So benefits that extend outside of work, really explaining why this is so important to the organization. When you rolled this out internally, what were some of the whys that you gave your employees of why this is so important?
Well, it's just like you just said, inherently by taking some of these same skill sets and some of these same things that we learn at work in regards to how to keep our data safe, you share this at home, with our children. I mean, I've heard many stories now of parents whose children, at some point were almost falling victim to clicking something where they were about to purchase something through their gaming system. And just because those parents had just made them aware that they were asked questions. And really, you find out once you really get this in your system that cybersecurity really is a community thing. I mean, it goes, like you said, all the way to our homes, our friends, family. And it's not just something that we practice at work. It's something that we practice everywhere we go, and when your employees are starting to have conversations about the latest, password management software for your cell phone and just having cybersecurity conversations that didn't exist a few years ago, it's a very comforting feeling. And I maybe, at that point started seeing some daylight at that you were talking about by utilizing these tools and just empowering them with the knowledge of what could actually help them both at work and at home.
A light at the end of the tunnel that wasn't a train. Yay. So it sounds like you're really starting to see some of the benefits of creating a security culture within your organization. And a lot of the times people wonder how long this is going to take to start to really come into effect and to see some of the benefits of it. I wanted to share a story that another one of our Defendify customers who wanted to join the webinar but ended up not being able to had shared with us. And they said an employee here had recently completed the awareness training and received a very convincing email from a vendor saying that they owed them $104,000 with instructions for payment. I'm sure a lot of you are starting to cringe a little bit, like you know exactly where this is going. But using the knowledge that the employee had recently acquired from cybersecurity awareness training, she knew that anything suspicious in nature like that should be questioned, verified by an appropriate and pre-established method. And after some further investigation of this incident, they found out that the vendor had their email compromised. A cyber attacker had gained access, set up a whole bunch of rules like deleting sent emails, forwarding replies, sending any emails that came in with certain keywords off to their own personal cyber attacker email address. And as a result of that employee having gone through, and we're talking less than 30 days ago, had gone through their first batch of awareness training videos, that employee was able to play an active role in stopping a payment of $104,000, very large sum of money, to a cyber attacker instead. So very quickly you can see some of these benefits and starting to create that we'll call it trust but verify, but really just verify, and that security culture within the organization. So what other types of things have you started to see that show you that you're starting to build that security culture?
Well, in our verticals, in healthcare especially, we receive risk assessments from the healthcare organizations, and what those risk assessments basically boil down to is what is your cyber culture? What are your policies like? What are your practices? And initially, to get approval for the purchase order or for the bidding process, if you can't say yes to some of the questions that they're asking, you literally are losing business. And so you have to really improve upon that. And we saw that improvement, and we saw the opportunity where that sort of separated us from our competition because we were able to say yes to so many of those things, those gaps that we were filling. Also, again, within the fish testing is to see the actual grading, the pass rate, just, really, really nice scores on on the fish testing, and again, the peer-to-peer conversations. I can remember when we first started initially doing this, it was kind of comical at first because some people were, they made it out to seem as if I was trying to get them, and I didn't click it because I knew you were trying to get me. I knew it was not me. It was literally something that they really had caught, and it was just amazing to see that response, because here I absolutely love when someone tells me a story of an email or the gift card story, or when peak holiday seasons roll around, the whole gift card scams, the income tax scams, all these things, just to hear those conversations between peer to peer, those are some of those indicators that we look at when we're actually assessing our culture.
I totally agree. And I really think it's super important I had started to mention this before, but the way that you position the cybersecurity awareness training program will go a long way toward increasing the employee adoption. When you're talking about things like phishing simulations, I interface with organizations all the time that say things like, catching users, like, oh, I can tell a lot about an organization's security culture, the way the employees talk about their cybersecurity program. If they're saying like, oh yeah, they're always sending me these emails trying to trick me into clicking on them, that is not necessarily a great indication of a security culture. Instead, we talk to these companies whose employees are really proud of themselves when they're able to catch that phishing email when it comes in. Instead of trying to trick employees into clicking on the links, or I like to position it as, if your kid is starting to play baseball, for example, they don't just go out on the field in the Little League World Series and hope that they win. There's summer camps, and then there's practice every week, and then they go to the games and they have batting practice, and they're always reinforcing and practicing those basic skills. So we look at phishing simulations the same way. We give them education, we give them training, and then we reinforce it consistently in simulating these attacks that the cyber attackers might launch. And this is meant to build up their muscle memory in recognizing and responding to these types of attacks. The way that this is positioned internally makes all the difference in the world for the employee buy-in. And as you mentioned, the whole like carrot versus stick type thing, I share with people all the time that I have failed phishing simulations. I eat, sleep, and breathe cybersecurity all day long. From the moment I wake up and I start my queue of 17 different cybersecurity podcasts that I'm following, and news articles and Twitter and everything else, to the time I go to bed, I have cybersecurity on the brain. So this is my day in and day out, and I've failed a phishing simulation. We're all human. We have that morning where we wake up and it's a Monday and we're under caffeinated and we're under a deadline and we've got to get something out. We forgot about it over the weekend. The kids are screaming in the background. The dog's barking, which I don't know if you can hear my dog barking, but she is. We have these human moments where we're distracted. We're in a new remote working environment. We have an email that comes in that really plays off a strong emotion for us. We have to be on high alert all the time. The cyber attackers only have to get lucky once. So if we have a human moment, and we all do, not having that fear that they're going to get, their punishment or they're going to lose their job. It's kind of that carrot versus stick mentality. How's that been in your organization?
I can't tell you, it's been a game changer for us, and in regarding just the participation, the groups in our SWOT analysis. When we do our SWOT analysis now for weaknesses and trends and threats, just seeing the change in the culture, and the involvement of our coworkers has just been absolutely wonderful. Again, it's that initial buy-in. It was a little tough. At first because everyone's so afraid. But again, once you get that involvement, from your peers and your coworkers, it works great for us.
We've talked to some organizations too that say that they're going to have a, cybersecurity wall of shame for anybody that, clicks on the phishing emails. They're going to put them on blast. And I'm like, whoa, that's not a good idea. We do in our reporting at least have what the repeat phishing, failures, or I call them the clicking time bombs. But I mean, it's a real risk. But that the wall of shame, you decided to go in the other direction and promote the people who are reporting things and highlighting your strong cyber defenders. Another thing that we hear a lot too is that with the phishing simulations and other types of awareness training and simulations, that you start to get a little bit of what I've dubbed the Prairie Dog Effect, where somebody pops up in their head in their cubicle and they go, hey, did you just get this email? What are your thoughts on that Prairie Dog Effect?
Yes, well, that whole conversation there is exactly what makes we embrace that here. When the fish testing takes place, a lot of times, and it may not be a fish test, but when someone receives anything, the first thing they do is they ask, hey, did you see this email come in? And fortunately for us, the way we're designed here is that those have become very easy conversations, and it spreads through the office pretty quick. Oh yeah, it's definitely not real, and we encourage it. I mean, we absolutely love those type of conversations. Again, when you're talking about minimizing disruptions, and someone literally sitting there and they click an email and they're wondering, oh my God, was this bad? Was this good? I much prefer the conversation. If it's not a sensitive email that has sensitive information, we encourage them to forward them over to our IT groups, and they will actually put the emails in a safe environment, so to speak, where if it's opened or checked or scanned, it will not create any problems for our networks. But again, we love the fact that our employees talk amongst themselves about emails. Again, if they're not sensitive emails.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. I also encourage the Prairie Dog Effect because we'll talk to people that say, oh, well, do the phishing emails is the same email that goes out to all of the employees? Yes. You want to have apples to apples comparisons as far as, the effectiveness of that phishing email on your staff. You don't want, a third of your group to get one email, a third of your group because that can create some resentment between employees. If, Tom over in accounting got a really simple phishing email this month and was immediately oh yeah, I know that was a phish, versus one of my favorite emails that we sent out was a lost dog phishing email, and that one got so many people because everyone was opening the attachment trying to see what the dog looked like to help find it and get it back to the owners. I would probably fall for that one too, but fortunately I work from home, so if my dog's lost, I'd probably be having a party right now. So the Prairie Dog Effect is a good thing. We encourage that. We actually, recommend setting up if you can't build a mobile app, then set up a Teams or a Slack or a Google channel where you can share those types of emails, because much like a phishing simulation might come into an organization where a bunch of people all get the same email and then they prairie dog up, hey, did you get this email? Cyber attacks work the same way. We see this all the time. Even here at Defendify, there will be the fake email from Rob Samopoulos, the co-founder, hey, Shanna, are you available right now? I need you to help me with a favor. And I'll get it, and then Jeff will get it, and Kyla will get it, and Angela will get it, and it will go across the entire company, and everyone will be responding in that channel saying, yep, I got that too. I got that too. We want that, because if I'm the one that's under caffeinated and stressed out in the morning and I don't know that we're getting hit from every angle and all the intelligence gathering that these bad actors are doing online and surfing through LinkedIn and seeing who works there, they're going to hit everybody, especially your new employees. So if you're sharing that information internally, then it was one more layer of protection, where if I still have the eye sleepies and I'm trying to crank away under a deadline, I've got that kind of advanced heads up in case it might have been the one time that my defenses are lowered a little bit. What about we hear a lot from people that say that they don't want to include, their IT people because IT people already know everything about phishing, and we're not going to fall for that. Or the senior management because they're worried about optics. Like, what if the CEO of our company clicks on the phishing link? What are your thoughts about testing and training everybody?
Absolutely, 100% everybody, because again, it's the ones that are in control of finances or certain high level permissions. Those are a lot of times the target, and for then for the C level or accounting department to understand that they are prime targets for hackers or for social engineers is really relevant. Um, Initially, even getting the C-level buy-in, when you really think about when we started, cybersecurity was just becoming a thing, in the whole civilian world. And so, that C-level buy-in initially, you know, that was they were looking at the money for something that they didn't even know existed, and it was really tough. And also even to getting the understanding that hey, you're the one that they really want those permissions so that they can actually go in and start changing up accounts and ACH deposits and things like that. And it really comes down to everybody being tested. I mean, even myself, I included myself because after the Cowboys game tickets thing happened, I was like, wow, man, I need to be tested just as well, because at this point, if this was a test, I'm the security guy and I failed. So it's very important everybody gets tested, because it's those moments that you think that it's not going to happen right before lunch, right before you get off for work, or again, everyone needs to be tested.
That is actually when we see the highest amount of phishing, voice phishing attacks, is like at the end of the workday when the receptionist is like planning out what is on the menu for dinner that night, or the stops that you got to make on the way home from work, and just want to clock out and get out of there and get back to the family, and the whole mental to-do list if anybody's like me. But you had mentioned on our call the other day that you're starting to hear words like phishing being used in regular conversation among your employees. Can you share any other like day-to-day things that you've seen proving that you're really building that security culture?
Well, absolutely. Again, even if they get it wrong, the fishing, the spear fishing, the fish, even if they get it wrong, they are aware, and they, um, having those conversations between each other, and also even on their personal time. I hardly ever myself talked a lot about it when I'm at home, but even my wife, she's in the banking industry, and she was actually even bringing up some of the terminology, and I was just really proud to hear her actually talking about it, because I really wasn't even discussing it at our house, but here at our offices, it's absolutely awesome to hear the planning of employees, and like you know USBs, USB drives. That was a huge thing for us, because we normally would store data, site drawings, and things like that on the actual USBs. But now, I mean, a USB drive is like a hot potato. You pull that out and you want to drop that in somebody's hand, they literally like, what are you expecting me to do with that? So it's
Oh,
all
no, thank you.
right.
It's kind of like when I go to trade shows and they have, USBs or the multi-prong with all the different like attachments. And I'm like, ooh, I don't know where that came from. No, thank you.
Exactly.
Awesome. We have a question that we are definitely going to get to here in a second. One thing I want to ask first is how can you, and this kind of ties in, I'll read the question now, but just know that we are going to definitely touch on this. It's how do you light the fire under management that doesn't seem to believe that cybersecurity awareness is not necessary and the cost is not warranted? So I think some of that kind of ties into how you can show that your security awareness training program is working.
Well, for us, definitely putting the fire underneath management. One of the things that actually took place was one of the incidents that I had mentioned earlier about the 400,000. Well, we've also had one where our particular bank that we use, they all showed up. It was 5 of our bank associates that showed up at our office here to actually start changing out account information. And that was very shocking to our staff and our CEO when they all showed up. And they actually showed us a chain of emails that had came from something that was spoofed like it was ours, but it was not exactly ours. So the banking industry had actually went through something. And so when our CEO started seeing that, it was absolutely one of the fires that lit the fires underneath them. And also looking at things within our SWOT analysis, looking at things like key performance indicators where, measurements of how can we tell if this is improving, and when you go from zero culture to where you have your peers actually talking about it, or when everyone was failing, our scores were in the 45% to go to 96% and in the high 90s. That was just clear indicators that we were actually improving. And also when the security assessments come in, one of the things that we're starting to see right now is even in the education sector, in the state of Texas here, they are actually now putting together laws. There are laws in effect right now to protect the educational institutions. And they ask us those questions. Do you have these type of programs in place? And just by having the ability to say yes to most of those questions, are key indicators for us that we are actually improving, because at one particular point in time, those were all no's or maybes, or we're working on it, to actually honestly say, yes, we have that in place. All of these indicators are now things that we can actually look at and look back several years ago and just see the journey of where we were as opposed to where we're at now.
I love that. And one of the things that you had mentioned, and this isn't applicable for every business specifically, but I loved that you actually quantified like how difficult it was previously to pass these types of risk assessments, like how much time you had to devote to it, how many, bids or new sales or opportunities that you missed out on because you didn't have proper cybersecurity measures in place. So there are definitely ways to be able to quantify. One of the things that I have worked with a lot of our customers with is presenting the case for these additional cybersecurity solutions, and a lot of different ways to go about doing that, which I've kind of toyed around a little bit with the idea of kind of doing like a monthly campaign from Defendify about how to present this to your senior leadership or your board or the non-technical decision makers. But one of the keys is talking to them in a language that they understand. So being able to quantify this risk, depending on, who in your management you're talking to and trying to get the approval. You might be talking to, like a CFO who you want to translate this into dollars and cents, whether that would be, like regulatory fines if you're under a highly regulated industry, dollars that you're missing out on in, for example, a bidding process, or maybe even it's your cybersecurity insurance policy. So if you have a current cybersecurity insurance provider and you haven't had a recent renewal in the last couple months, get ready for that, because that has been definitely a motivator recently for implementing additional cybersecurity measures. You want to kind of get ahead of that wave, so to speak, and start paddling now so that you can catch it and keep surfing, because we're seeing a lot of companies that are being either denied a renewal or they're getting hit with a crazy questionnaire that's asking them if they have all of these different, risk mitigation solutions in place. And when if they say no, that they don't have them, then they're either being told that their coverage is, drastically reduced, their premium is higher, or they're just uninsurable, period. So you definitely don't want to get marked as uninsurable and then have to try to scramble and put some of these measures in place to reduce your risk. There's definitely a hardening of the market that's going on. So that's one really good way to light the fire under management, is trying to get ahead of that cyber insurance renewal, or even getting a cyber insurance policy to begin with. If you're talking to, somebody maybe like a COO of your company, looking at it in a kind of a dollars and cents and operational standpoint, I like to break things down of, if we had a ransomware attack and our operations just came to a screeching dead halt right now today, what would that look like? What would that feel like? If we had no dollars and cents coming in, we could not collect any money from our customers, we could not provide any of the services that we're currently providing, and we still had to pay all of our fixed expenses and our payroll and all that other stuff. Like, what are those dollars? Maybe we lost $200,000 of business coming in if we were stopped for 2 weeks. We'll just say the average ransomware attack. We've talked to companies who have been literally networks out of commission for a month, and that's even with cybersecurity insurance coming in. So it lasts always a lot longer than we think it's going to, and can be drastic and devastating for organizations. So everything, gears screech, everything stops. What does that look and feel like? How much would that cost you? No operations going. From a HR or a legal perspective, you've got to talk to them in the language and the things that matter to them. You can also talk, try to keep the alphabet soup and the acronyms out of it as much as you possibly can. Break down the bad thing that could happen, how bad that bad thing could be, the likelihood of that happening, a phishing email, one of these, business email compromise, CEO impersonation, fraud type emails, likelihood of that happening, probably pretty high. The cost for cybersecurity awareness training to avoid that from happening, and then the cost of what could happen if you do nothing. So those are just some tips of how to get some management approval there, and show them why that justification is worth it, and why cybersecurity awareness, especially their management, they're the face of the company, and I think this also ties in here, Brian. One of the biggest challenges you had in rolling out your cybersecurity awareness training program, you had specifically said, was getting that management buy-in. So,
yes. It was definitely a challenge. The CEO, again, he attended a lot of the same conferences that I had went to, but it was, we have multiples here on our C-level board, and just getting total buy-in, it was really a challenge, because again, not having a clear distinction of what are we protecting and why are we protecting it, was the initial. And when I look back on it, I really wish that I would have spent more time, early on getting that buy-in, because we would have had a much more mature culture, with that C-level buy-in. Again, starting out, they look at the initial investment for something that they've never had, and it's like, wow, but really understanding what they're protecting. And I can tell you, one of the most convincing things is when it happens to them, like the conversation of the CFO and the CEO and text message, and they were completely devastated that how could this happen? But that hacker had actually spent time in our network and watched how they conversated through text messages and through emails. And it was very, very disturbing. And for that to happen at the C-level now, hopefully nobody has to go through that type of education where it may cost them initially, but again, it's just getting that point across as to what you could possibly lose, the day you have to stop and you're unable to meet your customer needs, and your employees cannot come in because they can't even log in. It's a scary thing,
And sometimes you also have to kind of stair step into a program like this. I know a lot of organizations that we've talked to have gone from like no security awareness training at all to trying to do less frequent training, and just to kind of get an idea of where the general audience population here, I've launched a poll. How frequently are you currently training your users or doing any kind of cybersecurity awareness training? So I've got a couple options that we threw up here. We've got monthly, quarterly, annually, or we haven't yet. If you have another option that I didn't put up there, maybe you're doing it like semi-annually, you can go ahead and just throw that in the chat as well if you want to have your vote counted there. But just to kind of get an idea of how frequently we're doing things. We've got about 60 or so % of our participants have voted so far. We've got a kind of a pretty even split here. We're running about 20-ish % doing monthly, 26% doing quarterly, a little over 20% doing annually, and about 30 or so we haven't trained users yet. So we had somebody put in the chat here, we train as they are reported or they are hacked. Yes, so the post-incident training also very frequent. So I'll share these results if you want to take a look there. That's where we ended. About 3/4 of you voted. So sometimes it has to be just little baby steps. We might have to just start off with, doing like a really good, solid annual cybersecurity awareness training. Defendify's done a ton of webinars. We have a lot of organizations that may not necessarily have the management buy-in yet, but they've utilized some of our recorded content in order to, do like a how to spot a phish webinar was one of the ones we did recently. So you can check out defendify.com/webinars. We've got tons of videos if you want to use that just to start. The journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step, to be super cliche. But that it might need to be a little bit of your kind of like, inching in. You start with annual, then maybe you go to quarterly training to work up to the frequency of monthly. Monthly is the best frequency for training because you're getting that consistent reinforcement. You're not losing, the employees forgetting the information or not having that consistent reinforcement of it. It's kind of like ongoing baseball practice, and you've got summer camp. You want to keep those skills up. And then one more quick poll. This is a multiple choice we're going to launch. Just kind of see what people are currently utilizing for security awareness training. Little short micro learning, frequent videos, simulated phishing simulations. That was really redundant there. Visual reminders. So maybe it's like something that you circulate in, Teams or Slack. About cybersecurity. Maybe it's a funny cartoon or a poster or something that's like on a TV in your entryway. PowerPoint trainings, maybe you do the annual conference room style training, or maybe you're just currently utilizing hopes and prayers to train your team. So you can select multiple choice. I'll leave that up for a little bit. Donald said, technically, I suppose I train 1 to 2 times weekly using your threat alerts. I forward to everyone and add specific areas and to-dos that impact them, like updating operating systems. Awesome. That sounds fantastic, Charles. If you are not currently signed up for threat alerts, that's a free service that we offer. I only did put that into Brian. Apologies. Let's get that out to everyone. So defendify.com/essentials, that is one of our 3 free tools that you can utilize. You can get those notifications about cybersecurity incidents that are happening. Pick and choose the ones that you want to distribute out to your team. Brian mentioned that he shared them. Now, Brian, do you select the ones that you share? Do you share all of the threat alerts that come out? How are you utilizing that internally?
I actually break them up into 2 groups. Because some of the actual threat alerts are more for the IT professionals, and then some of them are generally for everyone. So in the app, they actually have the part for IT professionals and the part that's for everyone, and I share them all.
Awesome. I think it's good. We don't want to contribute to kind of that cyber overload where they just become completely desensitized, kind of like every company that loses our information. And then they're like, whoops, we take security very seriously. Here's some credit monitoring. It's with databases and everything being configured and maintained by humans, it's going to happen, but we've kind of become very desensitized to it. We don't want that to happen with our employees. So I like that you split it up, but still make everything available. Some of it is a little bit more technical, but I like how, Brian said, Donald said that he forwards them to people, but adds, like a kind of a summary, like a specific to do, like here's the big long nerdy thing if you want to nerd out on it, but this is the specific action that we're looking for you to take. So we'll share some of the results here of the poll. We've got a good mixture here, but we got 39% still working on hopes and prayers. So at a minimum, get set up with some of that, the essentials package, and get some of those threat alerts. Trust me, it's way better than signing up for 40 different email chains to parse through all the different, things that are happening out in that cyber landscape. Because I know I get all of those emails, but we source from a lot of different places and give you ones that are pertinent to small and mid-sized organizations. I'll open it up here to see if there are any other questions from the audience or anything else that people want to share there. But also one other thing I'll pop up here. So if you're one of the hopes and prayers people, we do have an entire layer of the Defendify platform that is devoted just to employee awareness. Again, whether you use us or you use somebody else, just please start. Just take the first step, whether it's, playing one of our webinars or, distributing the threat alerts out to people. But we have a whole section that is devoted to, policies and training and the user awareness side of things. And if you want to get a little taste here, and I'll drop this link down in the chat as well, but we have an awareness video that we have made public. So if you want to take a peek, I'll drop this in the chat. But that is an example Ninjio video. I love these. I think they are just so entertaining. As you can see by this example, we've got John Lovitz stars as Richard. So there's, some good, I don't know, B-list celebrities. I hate to say it that way, but, you got these very recognizable voiceovers. There was one with Joey Lawrence the other day, and everyone was like, Blossom! So you get good enjoyment out of them. They're written by a Hollywood screenwriter, so they do have a good storyline. It's not just the, do this, don't do that type training. So a lot of people really are engaged with them, and they just think they're super fun videos. Charles asked, what is your take on the free Office 365 email phish testing? My take is do something, just do something. Build up the muscle memory of recognizing those emails when they're coming in. Encourage people to report. Create a safe space for them to be able to do that. Just doing something is better than doing nothing at all. It's kind of like if you can only get SMS text messaging, it's better than nothing at all. I mean, is it ideal for MFA? No, but at least start, do something. Create an ongoing regular conversation, and most importantly, just give them that kind of psychological security that it's okay to, report a phish, to send the emails over, to let you know if they've clicked on something. That's a huge thing. We see this all the time with the phishing simulations, with ours at least specifically. If you click on the link or open the attachments, you've got a little screen that pops up that says, oops, this was a test, but it could have been a real attack. And then there's a short micro learning video that will show them how they could have recognized that it was an attack. The very first phishing simulation that we send out, there's like minimal participation in the awareness training video, because people click on it, they see this pop up, they go, oh crap, and then they close it out and they don't even know what it was that they did, and then they just don't say anything at all. So you definitely want to encourage that, see something, say something type mentality. If you do this, you're not going to get fired over it, just report it. So anything that you can do to begin to build that security culture and have that ongoing dialogue and make it a part of everybody's day-to-day. We've got another question here. If you've got anything else, go ahead and throw it in the chat, throw it in the Q&A. We'll get to these. We have when and if. Thank you, Jared, for saying when. When an incident occurs within your company, digital forensics is a specialized cybersecurity field most IT professionals aren't trained to handle properly. Are there any specific companies and groups recommended for contacting in the face of an incident? You're absolutely correct. And I grew up with a dad who was a firefighter, and people used to ask all the like, I used to say, oh, Dad, how did the fire start? And he used to tell me all the time, that's not my job to figure that out. There are people that are going to come in and do that investigation and figure out how that fire started. My job is just to put the fire out. So same thing with a security incident. There are people that specialize in forensics. Like, your job is just to put the fire out. Somebody else will come in and try to figure out how it started. The best advice I can give you in that situation is contact your cybersecurity insurance provider. If you don't have a formal documented incident response plan of designated roles and responsibilities, who's in charge of what, who do we call when something like this happens, a couple of quick hit steps that employees can take to kind of contain the cyber dumpster fire, your cyber insurance provider, before you have an incident, reach out to them and see what their process is, because you don't want to be in the middle of one of these, crisis situations, not follow their recommended, either providers or their process in order to have your claims covered, or, using, it's like going to the doctor and in network versus out of network. Call your cyber insurance provider beforehand and find out what they want you to do, because often they have either their own team or a specialized network that they will refer you out to. If you don't have a cyber insurance provider, I can connect you with ones that provide cyber insurance. Or we also, in the case of an incident like that, depending on what it is, Defendify does have a huge network of companies that we, have worked with and can recommend. So if and when that does happen for you, please utilize us. Having a cybersecurity friend is almost like having a really good plumber. You don't realize how valuable we are until you're up to your eyeballs and you know what. So whether you're an existing Defendify customer or not, please make sure you connect with us, follow us, what we're doing. We're here for you in the event that you need us. So thank you for coming to my TED Talk. Brian, anything else that you would like to add here?
Yes, just like you mentioned earlier, is do something. Absolutely do something, and practice the event of something happening, so that if like someone mentioned earlier, when it happens, it will not just be everybody panicking. You will have a process and just walk through that process. Just practice, test, practice, test.
It's like fire drills. There's a reason why children doing fire drills actually get in their single file line and they go outside and they line up in the, next to the flagpole, and, Susie's behind Tommy, who's behind that practice and that process. We do that over and over and over again for a reason. We do it in the middle of, February in Maine, and kids aren't allowed to grab their coats, and we go outside and we shiver. I mean, at least decades ago when I did it, that was how it was, because we want it ingrained over and over and over again in kind of the calm time, that when that eventually does happen and everybody is just, all the kids are screaming, because my elementary school actually had a fire, and it was totally different from when the teachers are like, okay, now we're going to line up, like we weren't planning for this, and then it's just complete chaos. But that muscle memory kicks in, and they know, like, okay, it might be a little chaotic, but we're going to get in line, and we know we do this. So practice your cyber fire drills. And again, those couple links I put in the chat for everyone, if you want to check out a Defendify awareness video example, or sign up for our essentials for 3 free tools. If there are any other questions, you can reach out to myself or Brian. Thank you, everybody, for your time, and stay safe.
Thank you.